Hello, and thanks for coming to walk with me today. I am walking at 1.8 miles per hour if you would like to keep pace with me. And if you watched the last video and you're thinking, wasn't she wearing that shirt last time? Yes, you are correct. I was. This is the same day. I'm still at the 1st of October. I decided to go ahead and make part 2 of the video today. And yeah, let's get into it. I kind of left you with a little bit of a cliffhanger, if you will, because I mentioned that I had changed what I've been doing and that it actually is helping me lose weight. So in the last video, I mentioned that I looked up a podcast about food FOMO. Well, I just searched food FOMO, under podcasts because I'm like, certainly someone has talked about this. I ended up landing on a podcast called Weight Loss for Busy Physicians, and the host was someone called Katrina Ubell, MD. She was formerly a pediatrician, and she had kind of struggled with that, losing and gaining the same 40 pounds throughout most of her adult life, it seemed. And she's actually a coach right now and helping other people. But not only that, she has her podcast and she has this book. And this book is called How to Lose Weight for the Last Time, Brain-Based Solutions for Permanent Weight Loss by Dr. Katrina Ubell, MD. So I'm reading this book right now, and so far most of what's in this book is also in the podcast. So her podcast episodes are typically around 30 minutes long, and sometimes she'll share a personal story, and sometimes she'll just get right into the stuff. But I would definitely recommend, if you're interested in reading this book, you can get it on Amazon and probably most bookstores. But if you're more of a podcast listener, I would suggest that you start at the beginning, just to kind of get all the pieces of the puzzle that you might need. I haven't finished either, but I'm a good way through both. And just when I heard that episode about food FOMO, I was just like, oh my gosh. I've heard and read a lot of different things about diets, health, all of that, but nothing has ever sounded exactly like how I feel. And then I started listening to this podcast, and everything she said felt so relatable. And I mean, I'm not a physician. You don't have to be a physician to listen to Weight Loss for Busy Physicians, but she does mention a lot of stories that would be relatable for physicians. But when you get into actually the thoughts you might have around food, the feelings, all of that has been so helpful and made me think of trying to, instead of focusing on losing weight, I decided it's going to be more important for me to work on my relationship with food, because even if I stayed in my calorie deficit and lost the weight, if I haven't healed my relationship with food, there's a chance I would gain the weight back. So I started listening to that podcast, reading the book, and I also came across someone on YouTube named Rachel Wrigley, and she has a channel. You can just look her up, Rachel Wrigley. Actually, I'll put it in the notes or the description of this. But she talks a lot about various food disorders, specifically binge eating disorder, which I don't have. A friend of mine did have binge eating disorder, but I think that's a pretty common one. I'm just an overeater and an emotional eater, and actually Katrina Ubell says if you're eating for any reason other than you're hungry, then you are an emotional eater. And so most people probably are, because for me, I thought I'm not an emotional eater because I don't eat when I'm sad or angry. I don't eat. I'm no, I just don't want to, so I don't. But I definitely will eat to celebrate or rewards or that type of thing when I'm happy. Or I guess I've learned through doing some of this work that I do kind of turn to food if something is if there's some feeling I don't want to feel, you eat food instead and you're happy, all right? So I'm more of an emotional eater than I realized. And it's funny because even in her work, she's like, I didn't think I was an emotional eater, and turns out, surprise, surprise, and I am, and more of us are. then we realize. So if you're not sure if you're an emotional eater, or maybe you're in denial like I was, maybe give that podcast a listen and you'll start realizing that you might be an emotional eater as well. So anyway, from my work in that, I just so happened to be on YouTube and I found Rachel. Why can't I say that name? Rachel Wrigley. And she's a coach as well. They don't work together, these two people, but like I said, she does a lot of stuff about food disorders, and shares her story and all of that. But one thing she had was this scale of 1 to 10 and these various questions she would ask you, and you rate yourself on the scale of 1 to 10. And she probably has a lot more in-depth work on it, but in the video that I watched, she was basically saying like, okay, like maybe you're rated really high right now in certain things, but what if you think about other places in your life? And so like I mentioned in the last video, like I haven't been gaining weight for 2.5 years. I've been at like just the standstill. I haven't really been losing weight except for like 2 pounds. 2 pounds off, gain the same 2 pounds back, or maybe up to 5 here and there. I have not really lost weight. So she was saying, like, think of other times, like how did I get here basically, right? And I could think back to points in my life where some things were lower than like on that scale than they are now. And I could see how easily food was replacing certain things for me. For example, my dad passed away when I was 10, so I lost like some warmth and joy in my life, and so food was replacing those feelings for me, or like, you know, filling in the void, if you will. But I never thought about it like that. So yeah, it's just really eye-opening when you start working on healing yourself, especially healing things all the way back to childhood. So I'll link both of those things, or I guess all three, because there's the podcast, the book, and the YouTube channel, all in the description if you want to check it out. And just as a reminder, in case you haven't seen the episode, my best friend Nancy and I have a podcast that we do, and a lot of the conversations we have on there are around like personal growth, mental health, physical health. And our 4th episode, by the time you see this video, our 4th episode will have dropped. And the first one's about getting to know us. The second one is about how we've like maintained our friendship for 15 years. The third one is about food addictions. And some places will say it's actually not the food you're addicted to, it's the feeling you get, blah, blah, blah. However, we just call it food addictions because that's what it feels like. And then the 4th one is about when it's time to end like toxic friendships or friendships that no longer serve you. So if those sound like topics that you would be interested in listening to, you know, please go over to, let's see, where are we at now? Spotify, Apple Podcast, Amazon Music, like the podcast section there, and YouTube. I think those are the 4 places we are currently. And we also have a TikTok channel. It's called Bitches Be Cray. So that's where we are if you want to hear more and want to hear our conversations. So that's where we are if you want to hear more about those topics. This whole thing where I was mentioning about Rachel Wrigley and Katrina Ubell gets brought up in an episode that will be airing the week after this video right here. So you might have to wait a little bit to hear more about that. But basically, we're just trying to help other people know the same kind of thing I'm doing with this Walk With Me channel, this Walk With Amanda channel, is that like, you're not alone. Here are personal stories. We may be a little older than you. We may be the age that you are. We are in our mid-30s, mid to late 30s at this point. And so we've been through a lot of things with parenting, with jobs, with our health. And so we just hope that our stories help you know that you're not alone, or maybe we're sharing resources or something that's, you know, going to resonate with you and help you if you need help. If you don't need help, maybe you'll just find it entertaining because we're kind of funny too. But thank you so much for walking with me today. I'll see you next time. Bye.